Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I was 15 years old, female, sitting in the front room of my parents' house. Mom and Dad had gone out for the weekend to visit my auntie, who wasn't very well and had been suffering from a degenerative disease. I had no idea what disease it was. It was one of those confusing ones that basically degenerates the bones. She could barely walk anymore and had to be moved around in a wheelchair. Although she had regular care, Mom and Dad would visit her most weekends because she enjoyed their company. When they did this, they would leave me home alone for Saturday and Sunday nights, returning on Monday morning. By this point, I had already done this about 3 times. I'll be honest, the first time was kind of scary, but the second time was fun. Having the house to myself felt like a new level of freedom, and I thought it would be cool to bring my friends over. The third time I did, it was the best time I ever had. We trashed the place, played loud music, messed around, and cooked dinner. Don't get me wrong, we cleaned up the whole house before Monday morning. My dad would have gone nuts if I hadn't. It was the 4th time they went to visit my auntie that everything went downhill, leading to one of the most scary and bizarre experiences of my life. To give you some backstory, my neighbors to the left and right were friendly. Although I didn't know them well, I'd occasionally wave to them when my parents forced me to. Stupid stuff, like talking about football games or the weather. We didn't really know them as friends, but if something went wrong, I felt comfortable asking them for help. I had lived in the neighborhood my whole life. It was quiet, which made our upbringing feel secure. I mention our because I have an older sister who had already moved out. She is about 7 years older than me and basically raised me as a second mom, but this time, she couldn't be with me. She lived out of state for work and was married by this point. So here I was, excited to be left alone for the weekend. I tried messaging a friend to come over, but she couldn't, which was no big deal. It just meant I'd be alone for the 2 days. I was still kind of excited, without my parents to stress me out. They always left me some food to cook. I was 15 but could cook, so I remember doing the usual goodbyes and hugging my mom. They made sure everything was locked up and told me to go to bed early. I don't think they expected me to, but I just said yes and pretended to go along with it. They shut the door, and that was it. I ended up chilling out for the rest of that evening. The thing that happened, though, occurred on Sunday morning. Saturday night, I went to bed as usual, maybe a bit later than normal after watching a film. I drifted off on the couch, but woke up around 1. I walked upstairs and went back to sleep in my bed. I woke up early the next morning and went to grab some breakfast. After opening all the blinds and curtains and unlocking some windows, I remember struggling to breathe a bit. It was a hot day. As I was making breakfast, I heard a knock at the door. I instantly panicked for no reason, like a mini panic attack. It could have been anyone, a neighbor, my parents coming home early, or a family member, but I just panicked. It was out of the blue, and I know it was my 4th time alone, but it was the first time someone knocked on the door. I stopped what I was doing to regain my breath, worried about who it might be. I walked toward the door slowly, trying to see what they were wearing to determine if it was my mom, dad, or maybe a neighbor. Both of my next-door neighbors were elderly and seemed to wear the same clothes every day. The person at the door, however, wasn't wearing anything I recognized. I could see through the window. There was a perfect view from where I stood in the kitchen. I didn't think they could see me, but at the same time, I was a naive 15, and they probably had seen me walk up to the door. I wanted to turn around and run upstairs. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. I unlocked the door and opened it, meeting the sight of a tall man wearing some type of waterproof coat. He had dark hair and extremely bushy eyebrows, frowning at me. There was a few seconds of awkward silence. I didn't know what to say. I just stood frozen. Eventually, the guy turned around and pointed to the house across the road, maybe 3 houses down. He said, "Hey, we're from number 12, and we need some help moving something. Are your parents in?" I said no, they were out, and I couldn't help. In my mind, I thought, is this guy stupid? I was 15, a girl, and 5 foot, 1 at a push. How was I going to carry anything? I figured that after I told him no one was home, he would leave, but he didn't. He kept trying harder to get me to go with him, but wouldn't explain what it was. The house number he gave didn't even make sense since virtually every house in my vicinity was above 30. This was a huge red flag. I shouldn't have ignored it, but I should have shut the door then and there. He continued saying he needed help because his elderly father was trying to lift furniture. I kept saying sorry, just repeating it over and over. He wouldn't leave, he just kept standing there, saying how extra hands would help. The tone of his voice changed, becoming creepy and angry. This scared me even more, so I took a step back, grabbed the door frame with my left hand, and slammed the door shut. I bolted it and locked the lock. I ran upstairs to look out my parents' window, which overlooked the front yard. I crouched down so he wouldn't see me. Sure enough, he walked out of our driveway slowly. Next, I saw him get into a van, parked 2 houses down on the left side, nowhere near where he was pointing. I stayed crouched for about 10 minutes. The van didn't drive off. It was one of those creepy old gray vans with sliding doors. I could see he got into the passenger side, but there was someone else in the driver's seat. After 15 minutes, the van finally sped off. That was it. It was the last I saw of the man or the van. I called my parents right after and told them what happened. They cut their holiday short and came home early, around midday, instead of Monday morning. I barely remembered what the guy looked like, and I couldn't explain why he was there. Years later, I kind of know why, but the hardest part to accept was how they knew I was alone and how they even knew I was in the house. Maybe next time, I should pay more attention or just shut all the curtains for the whole day. It creeped me out, and from then on, I went to my auntie's with my parents for the weekends. It was Friday afternoon, around 4:30 p.m. Mom and Dad had just gotten home from work. I could see them both coming across the front yard toward me. I was floating on an inflatable in our swimming pool. We had moved to Tampa, Florida, just 4 months ago, and luckily for me, our new house came with a large pool. This purchase was made possible due to Dad's father passing away, leaving him a sizable amount of money, which he used to buy this house, a new car, and some other things. I wondered what was up, as it was unusual for both of them to come home early together. Dad called out, "Rob, can you come to the side of the pool, please? Mom and I need to talk." I paddled over to them, still sipping my Pepsi Max through a straw. Dad said, "Rob, we've been invited to a cocktail party tonight for my new boss, and we can't really get out of it. The problem is, Camilla can't stay tonight, she has a family reunion to attend." Camilla was our Latin American housekeeper, employed shortly after we moved here. When Mom and Dad had gone out in the evening before, they had asked her to babysit until they returned, and she was always happy to oblige for the extra money. I got along well with her, and she had known the family for years. Dad looked at me and said, "Rob, you're a big boy now, you're 14. Since Camilla can't stay tonight, are you okay being on your own? Mom and I won't be back until midnight or so, we think. You have your phone to call us if you need us. This party is important for us." I agreed, saying I'd order pizza, wedges, and chocolate shakes as long as they paid for it. Dad chuckled, saying, "I see you're playing the blackmail game. Tell me your order, and I'll place it." He paid for it and left around 7:30 p.m. with Mom, both dressed up for the meeting. Just before they left, Dad placed the order and informed me that the delivery was expected between 8 and 8:15 p.m. Mom said she would call at 10 p.m. to check in on me. After they left, I shut the door, went into the kitchen, grabbed some Pepsi from the fridge, and jumped onto the sofa to see what I could watch. I started to get hungry and looked at the time, it was 8:20 p.m. Suddenly, the external gate buzzer sounded. I checked the security camera and saw a man on a delivery scooter with a back box. He looked up at the camera and called out, "Pizza delivery." I told him I would open the gates but asked him to step back a bit because the sensor was confused. It wouldn't open if people stood too close. I asked him to drive up to the front entrance, saying I'd be waiting at the door. He said okay. Once the gates opened, he drove up, parked at the door, and rang the bell. I checked through the door viewer to confirm it was the delivery guy, then opened the door. "Hi, buddy. Here's one large meat feast pizza, a side order of wedges, and a chocolate shake to wash it down," he said. After I took the food from him, he turned to leave. I told him, "When you get to the bottom of the gates, I'll see you on the camera and let you out." I took the food inside and set it on the kitchen table. I then went to the camera and saw he was waiting to leave, so I buzzed the gates open. As they closed on their own, I returned to my food and thought nothing of it. I got everything ready and sat down to watch some TV while eating. I decided to put a film on. The film was getting good when suddenly, my phone rang. I looked at my watch, it was 10:01. I checked the caller ID and saw it was Mum. I answered, "What is it, Mum?" "The film's getting good. Do you have to call now?" Mum was just checking in as promised. She asked how the food was, and the call ended quickly. The film finished around 10:40 p.m., and as I couldn't find anything else to watch, I cleared up. I was about to go upstairs to bed when I noticed that the security light by the pool had been activated. I went to the large lounge window that overlooked the rear yard and pool area. I opened the blinds and looked left and right across the lawn but couldn't see anything. I thought maybe it was a fox or a bird that had set off the motion sensors. I closed the blinds again and went up to bed. Later that night, a noise woke me. I looked at my alarm clock, it was 12:15 a.m. I thought it was my parents coming home, maybe having had too much to drink and making noise downstairs. Suddenly, there was another thud from downstairs. I was getting annoyed, so I decided to call them and tell them to keep the noise down. I called Dad, and on the fourth ring, he answered. I said, "Thanks for waking me up. Can you keep it down? The noise is too much." Dad was quiet for a few seconds before responding, "What do you mean, Rob? We're not home yet. We're still about 10 minutes away." My heart sank. "Oh my God, Dad. That means someone's in the house downstairs. What should I do?" I started to panic. Dad told me, quickly, "Rob, listen to me. Lock your bedroom door and put your chair under the door handle at an angle. Once you've done that, go into your bathroom and lock the door. Do this as quickly and quietly as possible." I heard screeching tires and someone honking the horn repeatedly, then a siren. Suddenly, there was banging on my bedroom door, and I heard Dad yelling, "Rob, are you okay? It's Dad. Open the door now." I unlocked the door, and Mom and Dad rushed in, followed by a sheriff. When I went downstairs with them, I saw the mess where someone had gone through all the drawers and cupboards. Everything was scattered across the floor. Dad and the officer reviewed the security footage for the night. They saw that when I let the delivery driver out, two figures could be seen running through the gate just before it closed. Apparently, they entered the grounds and triggered the external security light earlier, later forcing entry through the patio doors while I was sleeping. Needless to say, my parents never left me home alone again for some time after that incident. They stole tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff, but thankfully, Dad had insurance. The culprits were never caught, as they had their faces covered and managed to escape just minutes before my parents and the police arrived. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.